What an incredible conversation with Kara McCarthy Perry. After 2 decades of practicing law in big law and in-house settings, Kara realized she needed out. Now she works as a consultant, helping organizations and teams build cultures grounded in trust. She teaches law students about mindfulness, well-being, and negotiation, and she's one of the leaders behind the scenes and on stages who is transforming our industry for the better. She also teaches laughter yoga. You heard me, laughter yoga. This is such a wonderful conversation, and I came away with a new friend. As is the case with so many of these episodes, tip for making friends as an adult, host a podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Wellness Esquire podcast. Please remember to rate and subscribe and enjoy. It is fantastic to meet you. How are you today?
I'm great. It's so great to meet you.
I was watching.
Where are you?
Where am I? Great question. Todos Santos, close-ish to Cabo in Mexico.
Oh,
And
wow.
lovely. Yeah. So I was watching some of your videos, and it seems like you're also a beach person.
Yes, I saw. I was
Okay.
reading something
Excellent.
about you.
But
Can you
I'm
hear me?
also
'Cause I
very
feel like I'm
strongly a beach
hearing-
person. I hear you fine. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I just have like some weird feed, but I can hear it. But I can hear you. I can hear you fine. Okay, that's better. I don't know. It's yeah, I was seeing that you were a beach person. That is that's my happy place.
It is also my happy place. My toes need to be very regularly in the sand, and I need to
Yeah,
be charged by the sun. And
yeah.
that's how I
Well,
operate. That's who I
I
am.
think it's for me, it's the water, like too, because like I
Yeah.
sit under an umbrella, because my age and my skin
Sure.
is but yeah, I'm a Cancer sign. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's just where, yeah, I feel, even when I don't feel well, like after my mom passed away, my dad was like, and my husband was like, we have to go to the beach. It's like my birthday, so we're going to the beach. And I was like, I don't want to go anywhere. And we went, and it was rainy, and just walking on the beach, and just like, it's just healing in like so many ways for me. It's just,
I'm
yeah.
the same. And I think for me, it's also very much about the water, even though that's not generally how I talk about it.
Yeah.
And we've had similar sorts of things where I'm, recovering from it. My appendix burst a couple years ago, and I was septic, and it was a whole thing. And then once I could move, my husband was like, okay, we're gonna go. You can't really walk yet, but I'm gonna carry you there because you need ocean.
Yeah.
And that is even when I was really young and I didn't understand anything about mindfulness or the nervous system or anything,
Yeah.
I understood that something felt different at the beach for me. And I didn't spend like that much. I mean, I spend so much more time at the beach now. I didn't understand it as a kid, but I understood that something was different about my experience and how I felt.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah. We used to go to the Jersey Shore when I was a kid. Like, that's what we did. I just loved it. And one time my parents, and I love all beaches. But I do love the Jersey Shore. But one time my parents took us to like Virginia Beach, and I was like, the beach was like, and Virginia Beach is great too, if anybody's there, but it was like so much smaller. And I remember we were like, what is this? But the same, I've just always loved being at the beach. And I am not a big water person at the beach. Like, I will go in, but I could just sit there for hours. Like my husband, my family laughs. Like, I just sit there. Nobody needs to talk to me. I can have my book, and I'll just sit for hours. I love it in the fall. I love it in the early morning. The big joke is, because we go down to the Jersey Shore now every year with my family, and I love when we have a house on the bay and we can see the sunsets. And the kids are always like, I'm like, we can't go out to dinner. There's a sunset. And they're like, there is one every night. And I'm like, but it's different. It's different every night. And it feeds my soul. And we're ordering in again.
Well, it's a big deal to know what feeds your soul. And I think a lot of us spend a lot of time not actually knowing what feeds our soul. And even often, I think a lot of us, even once we start to understand it, we still can get bogged down by like, well, that doesn't feel, I have to do the productive thing. And like,
Yeah,
sure, I
yeah,
know that that feeds me, but like you, it's not an automatic to just do the thing that feeds your soul, because it's not,
yeah,
we're not like talking about that in law school. Like build your
right.
career while doing the thing that feeds your soul.
Yeah, yeah. And there's the reality that it
I talk
doesn't, what feeds
now.
your soul, yeah, what feeds your soul doesn't always feed the body, right? And so we like there's, there is, um it's, you're 100% on. And there's something that when I teach this and talk to law school students about it, they're kind of like, yeah, and right, everybody's like drowning in debt and things like that, which I totally get. I try and teach them like, let's be a little more intentional, right,
Mhm.
about the decisions that and the things that you're doing, and how they align with your values, which is like not something I had heard about at all when I went to law school. So
Of course. Another thing that, law schools, and I'm now having so many conversations with lawyers who are currently practicing and lawyers who don't practice anymore and now help other lawyers practice the way that they want
no,
to.
I love
There's
what
so
you're
much
doing.
more discussion around values and how to figure out what they are, because they're not defaults and they also might shift over time, but you have to spend time figuring out what they are in order to live by them.
Right, right.
And it's becoming more of a conversation, but you still have to look for it, I think. So let's back up just a wee
Okay.
bit. Why did you go to law school in the first place?
I love how you ask everybody that question because it's always, I'm always interested in it too.
No,
Uh,
I ask very much on purpose, which
yeah,
is, I mean, I would like to think it's, clear that it's on purpose, but the reason is
yeah,
so many of
it
us
is.
go to law school and then we go off and do something that has nothing to do with why we went. And
Exactly. And
nice to
yeah,
remember, like, wait, where did this whole thing start actually? And
yeah,
it's okay if the reason changes, but
yeah,
where
right,
did it start?
right. And my story is very similar to many stories. Um, I did not want to go to law school. I mean, I guess it's different because sometimes you hear the people like, that's all I wanted to do. And I'm always like, wow. Like these people that knew that at like such a young age, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Um, I did not want to go to law school. My dad was a lawyer. He was first generation. He grew up in Vermont. His dad was a plumber. His grandfather was a barber. Like he was the first one to go to college and things. So I saw him. He worked at a big New York law firm and was a partner. And I, just saw the lifestyle that he had, right? He was never home. When he was home, he was, rightly so. Now I know. At the time, I was just like, Dad's stressed out all the time. Then I became a lawyer and I'm like, yeah, he was stressed out all the time. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But when I graduated college, I needed a job right away because I needed healthcare insurance at the time. And so I took I took a job as an administrative assistant is what it was, for Dun and Bradstreet, and was just trying to figure out, moved back home with my mom. I was just trying to figure out like what am I doing with my life. And so I did that for 3 years. I did live in the city. I worked for Scholastic way before Harry Potter. And I did like marketing. I knew this wasn't for me. I knew I needed to go back to school. At heart, I'm a student. Like I'm toying with going back for a PhD now. Like I just love school. So I was like, just really trying to figure out, like, is it law school? My mom's like, law school, law school. And there was a lot about what my dad did with pro bono work that what was always such a gift that he gave me. And that I was interested in. And I thought, well, I'll go back. Okay, I'll go to law school because I did consult with like a professor of mine because I thought about going back for PhD in philosophy and he gave me great advice. He's like, do you love it? I mean, can you eat, sleep, and breathe it? And I was like, no, probably not. And he said, I think you'd be really good at brief writing and which I didn't really even know at the time. So I decided to go to law school because it just seemed like, like the right intellectual thing to do for me, to be honest. And I wanted to, but I was only going to go and save the world, right? And do pro bono work, as a lot of people want to go to law school and do. And that was going to be what I was going to do. And my dad, when I told him I was going to go to law school, he goes, why don't you really, did you not see my life? Why don't you be a journalist? I was like, No. So he didn't want me to go. Yeah, he was trying to really direct me otherwise. But I did go, and I actually was excited. Like I was so glad to be back in school. I left my New York apartment. I left my New York job. I moved in with my mom because I was paying for law school. I ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in law school, and I actually really enjoyed law school. Um, I was stressed. Don't get me wrong. I was a perfection, by default, a lot of us are. But I really liked being back in an academic, intellectual, setting. And but I was just going to do the public interest work. And then after a first year, I did well. And you kind of just get advised, should I say, on, oh, you should think about the big firms. And it's really interesting now that I teach law school students, like when that shift happens, right? I had an offer to work as a summer associate to go to the ACLU as an intern for the ACLU, or to go to one of the big New Jersey law firms. And to this day, it's one of those, like, if you were like fork in the road, it was like a huge fork in the road. But it did come down to, it came down to a lot of different things, I think. And some of it being just financially. I was paying for law school. My husband and I got married in my third year in law school. And I thought, oh, I'll just try it, right? And then I'll go do the thing. I'll go do the public interest thing. And that's how I got to law school. That's sort of how I did law school. I will say I had support for trying different public interest things. So I did have some internships and things during the semester doing that work. But ultimately we were paying for a wedding. We had loans, and then it's the mortgage and the first kid and the second kid. So it was always, so I did like my corporate law class a lot. And I got into healthcare law, which was actually really interesting. So it wasn't like I was just like, oh, I don't like this, but I mean, I kind of liked the work that I was doing, sort of. And I took the summer job at the bigger New Jersey law firm, and was a baby lawyer there for a while and stayed there. Jumped to another big law in New Jersey, and then I went in-house for 14 years. Yeah.
How did you feel throughout your career? How did you like the work? How did you manage stress? How did you feel about your life?
Ooh, how long is the show? How long is the podcast? Let me try and I can ramble. So wheel me in and help me land the plane if I go too far.
Go wherever you want.
How did I feel? I like I said, I did like law school. My family would say, "Did you really?" Because you were like, stay away from me during finals. I remember my best friend from high school, who's still my best friend, was getting married. She was pregnant. She was getting married, and she had her shower, like a dual shower. And I went to it for like maybe, I don't know, an hour, because I had a tax exam. And I was like, I have a tax exam. Like, she was kind of upset with me. And in my world, I was like, I have a tax exam. Like, how do people not understand? Like, how, like, so yeah, but I definitely, like, I did law school, like, I left my job, and so I'm glad that I was able to maintain my relationship, but my husband now was amazingly supportive and, like, not needy or whatever, was just there, like, when I was ready to, like, so law school was okay. But it was afterwards that I just never, and I think I've heard a lot of your guests kind of say, like, I just never felt like it was the right fit at the bigger firms. I had amazing mentors. I have to say, like, I was really fortunate to have several female mentors too in corporate law at the firm who showed me some different ways of kind of being a little bit. But ultimately, it was, I think, the work for me that just didn't feed my soul, if we're going to say that, and I did do pro bono work. I tried to weave that in to help me because I enjoyed that, and I liked the feeling that you were more immediately helping people, I guess. But then that just added to stress, right? Because I was, working and doing all your billable hours, and then you're doing this, and as
Yeah,
kids started
more
to
work.
become,
Some of it is the more work makes you feel a little bit more, like you're filling up your soul, but now
yeah,
it's adding to your.
now you're adding and exhausted and feeling like you're not doing a good job of either of them. So, um, yeah, so I mean, I feel like I was always really grateful for the opportunities I had, and there was a part of me that always had imposter syndrome, right? In these places, like, what am I doing what am I doing here at this firm? Or what am I doing on this deal? Like, I remember I was on an ExxonMobil deal and I was the associate for the in-house counsel and commuting down back and forth to DC. And in anybody else's mind, or not anybody else's, but people who were like, I really want to do corporate law and I really want to learn this, it was like the most amazing opportunity that you could have. And I really enjoyed working for that attorney and that in-house counsel. He was amazing and taught me how to be, and showed me examples of how you don't have to be, the jerk lawyer, right, in negotiations and deals, which was what a gift. But like the work, I was like, oh, like it just didn't, yeah, it just didn't, it ultimately wasn't what I always wanted to do. So that was always a struggle. I was always going to leave and do the thing, but I didn't know what the thing was. So I was always like, once the kids got older, and then once I had the kids, it was like, well, I worked part-time for a long time, and that was amazing that I had that opportunity. Really grateful for that because I really struggled with what kind of mom I wanted to be, and still I wanted to have a career. But honestly, after my son was born and he was 2 months premature, I was like, I'm quitting and I'm becoming a NICU nurse. That's what I'm doing. My husband's like, well, you don't really like blood or any of that stuff. So, okay, but like maybe hold off 6 months, which I did. But I think once after I had my children, it got harder and harder to do the thing that didn't fulfill me, because I started to see it showing up in how I showed up for them. Because I was kind of like at a simmer, always ready to boil over, is what I used to say. And yeah,
What
but I
was
was
the
really grateful. I worked part-time and I was really, really grateful for that. That was a real gift. It was hard. It was, 50% of your pay for 60% of your billables, but I was glad to have it.
So what was the point when you just realized, oh, I have to be done here? And how did that coincide with finding things like meditation and laughing yoga, which we have to get into?
Yeah. That didn't happen overnight at all. I never had like a one thing. In fact, I talk to my students, like, I remember when I was switching firms and I was dropping my son off at daycare, and we always had a little thing where I would walk out and he would be in the window and I'd stop and we'd do a little heart every morning, right? And it was at the new firm, it was in Newark, I had a longer commute, I had a client meeting, like, I wasn't there, right? Get in the car and I start to pull out. I still to this day don't know what stopped me, but I was like, oh my God, I forgot to do the thing with Aiden, right? And I think I had cell phones then. That's how old I am. I think I called, it was a flip phone for sure, or, and I asked the teacher, like, is he okay? Is he still at the window? She's like, they've tried to be really helpful for the work moms. Like, he was upset, but it's okay. We're going to calm him down. I'm like, oh my God. So I pull in, go back inside. So now I'm late. I'm going to be late. And he remembered that because he wrote about it like, later. But I remember thinking, I can't keep going like this. When I'm with the kids, I've got to be with the kids. When I'm at work, I've got to, be there. I didn't have any concept of mindfulness or meditation or anything. I just had this sense like, I can't keep doing this. But nothing changed. at that point, I I went in-house. That was more helpful. So just trying to kind of find different arrangements. And that for me was a much better fit. Just I preferred not being with lawyers all the time. Nothing against lawyers. I do I find myself. But the idea that like we're not the center of attention and we don't know, all the answers in the business. So that was a better fit for me. It was also in my hometown. So I could run over to kids' activities, and my boss that I had, who was amazing, I could leave a message on, like I was doing the Medicare Part D, it just happened, and like leave a message about the contracts. And also, by the way, the brownies I made last night burnt and it's so annoying. And she could be like, oh, just go buy some and put them on a doily. That's what I've done. I'm like, oh, great. So we could like do that. And that was really great. And I stayed there. I was there for 2 years. I left and went to Seton Hall, and I was a faculty researcher at the Center for Health and Pharmaceutical Law, thinking, okay, I'll try this. I'll try, academia a little bit. Really interesting. I did enjoy that. And then I got pregnant with my daughter, who was my third. I was on bed rest. Things didn't work out. When I came back, it just wasn't the right fit anymore. And so I went back in-house because at that time, a good friend of mine there was going part-time. And she called and was like, we need another half of me. And I was like, well, to be back in the kids' school. And okay, I'll do that. So it was kind of like always shaping it around my family. My husband traveled a lot and what worked for the family. And just sort of in the back of my mind, I always say it was like a little itch that just kept getting, more prominent that I had to scratch. But I wasn't sure. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And it was when my daughter was in kindergarten, I'm like, now I'm going to figure out the thing. And I got a coach a career coach. And that was interesting, but it didn't really help. I was like, maybe I'll do mediation. Maybe I'll do, I ultimately didn't do anything. I stayed where I was for 14 years. I stayed 12 more years at the pharmaceutical company. What happened for me was COVID. Yeah. So COVID was my, the forced pause in my life and all of our lives that I personally needed. And it just came, at a time where my children were a little bit older. My daughter was in 6th grade. And that it gave me an opportunity to have time to really reflect. I had almost left 3 years before that. I had almost kind of thought about leaving. And then I had sort of a health issue that really scared me. And I was super grateful to have my job at the time. My husband was away and traveling a lot. And I was really, really grateful to have something to take my mind off it. So it was like sometimes it just kept, and I had a great boss too at the time. And I stayed. But it came to a point where, I started I hated meditation and yoga before. Tried it at in-house, we had a gym. And I remember going down for a class and I got corrected in pigeon. Now I know it's adjusted. And like the meditation, my to-do list at home was here and my to-do list, for the office. And I literally was like, when I got corrected, I was like, I'm out of here. And I like left. I was like, if I can't do this right, I'm, like that perfection.
Talk about perfectionism, right?
Yeah. And so I left. But it was during COVID that I read something, and we weren't thinking rationally, that if you could hold your breath for 15 seconds, then it meant you didn't have COVID. And we all kind of went in with a little bit of a cold. And so I started doing that. And when I did that, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit calmer right now. Like I really needed something for my anxiety at the time. And as our phones do, it was listening to me, and I just increased it a little bit. And a meditation course, came through that was nothing like I had tried before. It was called the Ziva meditation. And it was, I think it's Emily Fletcher, and she called it like meditation for lazy people. And I was like, what is that about? And it just really, the way that she taught it and delivered it, it just worked for me. And so I started that. I had started yoga. I should say, I should like circle back. I did start taking yoga. I when I didn't like that, it was years later in 2019 that I started yoga, where I teach now at Lifetime, and that was different. It was like hit plus yoga that was my gateway drug, as I say, because I like to exercise and move. You know, if I'm going to take the time, like that's always been my well-being thing. You know, but moving. You know, I don't want to slow down. So I tried that, and I loved it. I was like, what is this? And there was no mirrors. The teacher, we don't really model unless, you know, we need to, because it's about not getting your body in the pose, but your pose in the body. And I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. And I remember they taught us this, what I now know is this Ujjayi breath and the fire breathing. And I went back, we had a standing legal meeting on Tuesdays with our group. And I was like, oh my God, we all have to learn this fire breathing. This is going to help us with these clients. He's like, what's fire breathing? I'm like, I learned it in this yoga class. It's awesome. So I got into yoga that way. And then I actually signed up for yoga teacher training just to deepen my practice. I wasn't at all, and I wasn't even telling anybody that I was doing it. And it was going to be in March. And I remember I had a business trip scheduled there, and I was like, oh, the first classes. And then, of course, we had the shutdown. And so it was during COVID then that I started this meditation on the lowdown. Like, I wasn't telling my family I was doing it either, because I'm like, they're going to think, you know, what are they going to think? And that it's amazing how the silence can speak to us is really what happened for me. And I always say it was a little bit of the fear of the unknown, which kept me where I was for so long. That became less than the fear of staying. And and I did a program, a personal development program called Lifebook that looked at like 12 categories of your life, not just the career. And that changed everything for me. It was like looking at your physical, you know, well-being, your intellectual, your emotional. And it was really interesting because my physical was like fine, you know, and that really informed then what I ended up doing. I mean, if you had asked me back then, I wouldn't have been able to, you know, connect all these dots. But looking at that more holistically, that really changed things. And actually, after that program, I didn't leave my job right away. I actually sort of not doubled down, but I was like, you know, I've been doing this kind of part-time. Maybe I need to do this more, like really dedicate myself. And my boss that I had loved, she had left. And then I was like, I could become the price reporting person and know all the regs and do the thing. And so I actually, people were like, this is great. Kara used to be part-time. Now she's available all the time, you know, because it's COVID. And so that was for 6 months. I tried that. And then I did some more like kind of deep thinking. I'm like, this is just, I'm doing the same thing. And so I left in September 2020
And
with
just
no
stop
plan.
with no plan.
Yeah, with no plan. I don't necessarily recommend that unless like unless, I mean, I was fortunate to be able to do that. But I didn't have a plan. The day after I left the yoga teacher training that they were doing a cohort, the first one online. And I didn't even think about it twice. Which is unlike me. I'm very like, you know, decision making. Sometimes it's hard. I'm like, what socks are we wearing today? So I just signed up and I did that. But the identity issue, that was tough in that year. Or longer.
Did you feel like, you know, you'd had all these years where you as an attorney was essential and now I don't practice, so what does that mean for who I am and the value that I bring?
Yep, exactly. And a lot of like, who am I? Yes. And what will people think of me? Like if I'm not like, what do I have to offer? You know, even at like like some law school of not like I was going to events because it was during COVID, but I was like, who, oh, you're when you're in house, people all want to talk to you. Everybody's like, oh,
What was the reality? Did anyone seem to care?
no, I mean, I met like it's really interesting, like the stories we tell in our heads about what people are thinking, right? And so interestingly, when I, as I said, I wasn't ever going to teach. And then I got worried that I was going to like forget these skills on how to cue vinyasas and down dog and up dog. I was like, I just did all this stuff. Like, well, maybe I'll just apply to teach. And so I got the job, and I always used to joke, oh, they're really lacking people, for COVID. They hired me as the yoga teacher. And
What a way to put yourself down.
I was, I'm that's like, yeah, that was my go-to. Yep. Um, and
I've
now
certainly done my own versions of that, and I think
Oh
most.
yeah, it's the self-deprecating Irish. Yeah, it's part of it. And the town that I grew up in, it's kind of like our culture.
Yeah.
But oh, so the identity. So I put on LinkedIn, like, and I didn't realize I post a lot, but I'm not good with like all the things and the features. So I just put it in my list of jobs, not knowing that it like automatically populates. I thought you had to like turn that on. And like it populated like
So
Kara's
you
a yoga
actually,
teacher. And I was like, oh my God. I was dying. And then like people are commenting, I'm like, oh no. And there were nice comments. And I was like, okay. And I actually had to go to an event. I went to an event for Seton Hall for my law school. Um, and it was like a fundraiser. I don't know, like it was like people and the hobnobbing and the thing. And like people were like, oh my God, I saw your LinkedIn. That's so great. And I was, it was really interesting, right? The reaction was positive, and I was so worried about it. And then as I started talking about it more and saying, I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm a lawyer, then it was like all these yoga lawyer teachers, like, I started finding them, and they found me. So then I started calling myself the laughing, lunging lawyer, and people would be like, I do that too. And so that was really interesting.
tell me about
Um,
the laughing part.
the laughing yoga.
Yeah.
I love laughing yoga. Um, so I did the yoga teacher training, and I remember I was driving somewhere, and I was listening to I don't know, a podcast or something, see how podcasts can change people's lives. Yay for you. um, and there was an attorney from Australia, and she was talking about how she was really, really depressed, and she's driving home from work, and she just was like, I can't do this anymore. And she talks about just this depression, and she just didn't know what to do. And she heard an advertisement for a laughter yoga session in a park, and she's like, what is this? And she said she went, and it was strange and awkward and all of the things, but she left feeling so much better. And then she signed up for the training, and I was like, laughter yoga, I've never heard, what is this? And I went home and I Googled it, and there was a training starting, and I like, why not that? I'm already the wacky, yoga lawyer. So let me try that.
Walk me through, what is a laughter yoga class like?
Yeah, so it's not what people think. People are like, I can't do yoga. I can't, how could I even do it when I'm laughing? It's actually not. It's more like it's really about trying to find joy and that childlike playfulness. And laughter is really just an exhale, and actually gets your diaphragm more involved. So like you can exhale more air. And so it's like silly exercises that you do. Um, you look in each other's eyes, and it's fake laughter at first, and then it starts to grow into real laughter. And it is just one of the like best ways to change, the chemicals, and those good chemicals. And I always said it like helped my abs at the time, the laughter yoga. Um, it is tough with, I've done it with middle schoolers and lawyers, and they are equally as tough a crowd. The middle schoolers were great though, actually. But it's really just, it's a
What do
way, I
you,
love it because it helped me to bring the concept of like, we should take our practices seriously, our yoga, our law, meditation, but like, let's not take ourselves too seriously. And I was a very serious, like, lawyer, like I was like, but I'm not that serious a person.
Do you think you had some post where you shared, you think or you wonder, if you'd had some of these tools, the meditation, the laughter yoga, when you were practicing, maybe you could have built a legal career that could have actually felt good. And so, of course, now a lot of what you do is you're bringing these tools to lawyers while they still do want to or think they want to practice so they
Yeah.
can build up their careers. But just tell me about like these tools that you have now. How do you think? And look, not everyone has to practice law. It doesn't have to be the right fit for everyone. And you
Right.
can
Right.
do it for a period of time and then feel like that was great. I'm done.
Yeah.
There's so many options
You
and
do
they're all
so
okay.
much. Yeah. You
But
can
I
do so
think
much.
it's more about having the tools to do the thing that you want to do, as opposed to not being able to do the thing you think you want to do just because you don't have the people and the resources and the tools to make it work for you. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a good question. And I know I always said I wish I had these practices sooner, especially the don't take yourself so seriously. Um, it's a hard one to answer now that, I can look back a little bit more now. It's been 6 years. And I always say like I've gotten a PhD in myself, like in these last 6 years. Um, yes, I wish I had these practices because I do say to my children, because they've seen such a change and it's helped them, you know, on not seeing me so stressed out and overwhelmed and strung out. Um, and I say to them, I'm so sorry I didn't consciously parent you, right? I was just trying to, we're just trying to get by, and we're all really close. It's funny because I always say the title of my book should be, with kids and all these practices, like we're just all trying to mess our kids up a little less than we were messed up, but with the F word, it's more fun. So I wish I had, yeah, trying to F you up more than we were effed up. And we say to our kids, like, and I think we've done that, like, we're just all learning a little bit more. Yes, I wish I had them because it just would have helped me be more compassionate with myself, right? And that's like been the biggest gift. And then from that, just be more present, more, you know, present with my kids and just everything. I think it would have just been easier. And I do think, we're all on, that my journey was my journey. And if I hadn't had all that experience, and if I hadn't worked in the corporate law and done the things, I don't know how the laughing yoga, would have gone. But I think it all built on each other. But yes, I absolutely wish that I had these practices. I just know that they would have helped me. And I don't know that I would have still done the career, right? That it would have changed that. But I think being able to be more intentional about things and just to, really feel more like you're making choices that are aligned with your values, even just the values work, I think would have been hugely helpful. I think that should be done in high school, really.
How do you work with people, whether it's law students or lawyers, on developing their values and developing their values and then figuring out, well, how does that fit into the career that I want? How do I make those shifts?
Yeah, really good question. Um, I mean, there's a lot of assessments out there, right, that you can do for identifying your values, and that's sort of how I did mine. And I think those are all really helpful to kind of give you that time to look and think about it. With my students, they actually create in my one class. It's foundational to this conscious contract process that we teach, which is a really relational a relational contracting approach, which has actually been around since like the 60s. I found out in doing an article that I'm working on, which is good and bad because I'm like, nothing's changed that much. But this kind of operationalizes that. And they doing their values work is actually part of the process that they do themselves first. And then we teach them how to facilitate that with doing it with clients. So when like mission driven or founders are coming together, so that, they really understand their values, and not just like the company values that get thrown up on the wall, that they're really thoughtful and intentional, and then when they come together that they align them. So the students that I work with, and this is similar, like I said, to what I would do with clients, is some people think that they know their values. They're just like, I know my values, I'm good. um, we just have them do exercises and different, that could be some of the things online, or as simple as an exercise, like think of 3 of people that you really admire and think about what you admire about them, and are those some of your values. And then when they identify values, even just a value sheet, what resonates with you, and then really just trying to narrow them down, to like 5 or so.
Can you give some examples? I'm sure a lot of people listening will be like, oh, yeah, values, family, health,
Yeah.
maybe money, like, prestige. Like there are, but I think without really sitting down and digging in, you might think, the first ones that come to mind, you might realize like, oh, actually, either those aren't my values, in fact, or they were my values and now things have changed, or they are, but boy, am I not living in alignment with them.
No.
So can you give some examples of values, and maybe in particular values that people don't tend to think about off the bat, but then when you really dig in, you realize, oh, these are, and maybe they're more common than
You
people tend
broke
to
up a
realize.
little at the end.
Oh,
That people don't. I heard you kind of.
oh,
Kind of faded out.
I think just the
You
idea
want
is, what are some examples of values that people may not even have on their radar?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I'll just tell you my values that I did, which I actually really need to redo my values. I haven't looked at mine in a little while. Talk about being intentional, um, and some major life events like my mom passing away and things. But my values have been um, connection, growth, fun. So fun is one of my values. Consideration and integrity. I'm missing one. Connection, growth. There's a C.
Yeah, I'm not going to test you.
It'll come to me. And when I do connection, I like that encompasses like family, and friends and things. And when I'm making decisions, that is a big part of, even when I worked, it wasn't something that I necessarily named in that way, but I remember always saying, and when my husband and I, talking about getting married and things, like, I don't want to have I want to be present with each other. Like, I don't, that's why I don't want to do the big New York law firm. And so when we sometimes would have activities or things that came up, especially even when we had our kids, it was deciding like what's important, and our family, that was always something that was important, and something I had to keep reminding myself about, though, because I am very much, I'm a recovering perfection. I'm still recovering. Jordana Confino is amazing. Like,
I adore you.
I love her work, and that's still an area for me.
For anyone who doesn't know, and she's
Yes,
I'll
she's on. Go check out the podcast. It's great. I could like, there's so many of the people on all your podcasts are great. But it's something that I have to continually remind myself about, because I can still find myself, even in the work that I do, that I love. So it's different, right? Because now I'm probably working more than I did even at the firm, but I love it. And so it's even a little bit more that I have to watch it, because I can just like, and forget family. And so but something that, sometimes I think what people think is like they have to be super aspirational, like they have to be like, things that are like, doing better for the world. But, like, I have first generation law school students, sometimes, their values do revolve around, financial security and stability. And that's perfectly okay. And then, have a discussion. Like, one of my students said, my brother's never been on a vacation or a trip. Right. And so that, and understanding that if you're going to pick, a certain career path, because that's a why, right? And that's just not saying like, I'm doing this because, the loans or whatever. And that can change, right? That can change. I mean, that might still be your value, and maybe you go to the firm for however many years, and that can change. And so I think what I've been doing lately with students is trying to give them sort of scenarios. When you think about, especially we've been talking a lot about rule of law and our ethical requirements, and your personal values. And sometimes, they don't all align. And when you're in those pressure situations, when you have a partner that wants you to do something that you don't think is right or doesn't go with your values, what do you do? And how do you feel? So my work that I do, with clients and my workshops and with my students and my scholarship is really around embodiment and trying to get us out of our, our thinking minds that we need, but really into our bodies and back to kind of connecting them all. So feeling that tension in your body, and then sort of, can you name it, right? Like, is this a value of mine that's being, that I need to think about?
I love that. I love the connection between, the sort of, maybe in a way it's like the first step. Maybe it doesn't have to be chronological, but one of the steps is the value recognition, and the other step is listening to your body when they go together. And for me, sometimes I've now become so in tune with my body. I have not always been
Yeah.
that, I can feel like, oh, that's not a client I want to take on, or that's
Right.
whatever it is.
Yes.
I feel
Yes.
it, even if my brain doesn't yet know why. That doesn't matter. I know the feeling, and it just means not me, not for me. Don't want to. And one of my values, my husband and I, a number of years ago, started to shift all of our decisions to being made based on happiness. And so everything we do is based on, will this make us happy? If yes,
Mm.
let's go toward it. If not, then it's just a no. And we don't tend to think about, well, how do we make decisions? What's it based on? What are we driving toward? And then what's it supposed to feel like when it's
Yeah.
a yes and when it's a no? And when you start to actually know how to make those decisions that feel good, everything really does start, at least my experience has been, it starts to fall into place. The things that used to feel so tricky because at least for me, it was, thinking, well, these are the rules and I'm supposed to do it this way. And
Right. Yeah.
once,
Yeah.
once we can start to really understand for ourselves, what are the values we want and what's it supposed to feel good when it feels right.
Yeah. And so it's that, in my yoga classes, I always end, we take a big inhale, gazing up, and then the head bows to the heart, because we're so in our head, right? That we forget that they're actually connected, right? There's the vagus nerve that runs like right through all the major, and there's, and there is a lot of connection. And I teach students about intuition. Um, and that intuition, right, that's a good, like, you need to have the data. Like, this isn't, none of this negates all the skills, like, that we have to have our analytical skills. But like the best leaders, when they have to make decisions, like, they're not doing what I used to do, which is, and my husband be like, you still do, like analyzing every which way, whatever, right? At some point there comes a thing where you have a knowing in your body, and it's sort of getting back to that. I'm doing my
Trusting it.
yeah, my scholarship right now that I'm doing, that I'm really excited and into, is on spiritual intelligence, and it's really interesting. I won't go all into it because I'm still doing research, but it really is sort of like connecting to like something like a knowing and that intuition, but which I think is something that we don't talk about, for law school students. And there's tools and techniques that we can start to, have that capacity. It's actually a capacity that we can grow. So there's different practices for it, but yeah, you named, like, I love that you're doing that, and like that, but that feeling in your body, that's where it starts. It actually, we have these physical reactions, and then it's the thoughts, right? And then we have the feelings that become the thoughts, and then it's the thoughts that if we ruminate and ruminate. But there is this thing, like we like to tell, say to students that, my amazing mentor, and J. Kim Wright, who, she's actually, there's an integrative law movement that I love, when you were like, I'm trying to integrate, and these integrative lawyers, I'm like, oh, I love it, and I didn't identify as an integrative lawyer at the time, but like everybody on your show, I'm like, that's an integrative lawyer.
That is a new
Where
term for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was for me too. It was for me too. Yeah, no, there's been people who have been doing this work that I found like for like over 20 years. And I think there was something during COVID because I was like, where the hell were these people when I was practicing?
That is exactly, I mean, that's so much of the point behind the Wellness Esquire.
Yes, which I love.
This feeling of, I know that there are so many of us. We just don't know where everybody is.
Right.
And I am quite confident that there are more lawyers who share our general values around you can build a thriving and fulfilling, successful career in a way that feels healthy for you and that fits the life that you want. It's just that too many of us don't know how to do it. It's not
Yeah.
actively taught, and you have to really seek it out to find, the examples and to find the people who you can learn from it and, build it up the way you want to. But we're out there,
Yeah.
we just don't know where
Yeah.
everybody is. And I actually just talked to someone else was introduced to me, and she said, I just found out that there's this secret group of happy
It's a
lawyers.
secret
I
group.
have no idea.
It's a secret handshake.
Yeah, and every time I do get an intro, and Jen connected us, and I
Yeah.
every time I'm like, where have you been?
Yeah.
It didn't take so long. And
It's so
then you
true.
find out, well, 20 years, what do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that. I was like that. Well,
But
and it's funny because well, Kim Wright, and she's written several books, Lawyers as Peacemakers, Lawyers as Change Makers, Trauma Informed Law, and I co-teach with her at Quinnipiac. She, and she did collaborative law, like before, like it was a thing and had like, um, different disciplinaries because she had like a family law practice, and a lawyer that he did meditation like before like this all was a thing. And she ended up selling her home and traveling around the world finding lawyers who were like felt so alone but were doing things in a different way, which is I sent them my co-teachers. I'm like, the students need to listen to this, they have to hear this, because having examples of people that are doing it, because it's one thing for me to stand up and like I left my practice, like I didn't create the new law firm, which I'm amazed by people who do that. And having examples of people who do that, like who is it, Matthew, who has the subscription. I'm like, we talk about that, and Gwen and I can't remember. Yeah, who have that other. I'm like, this is amazing because that's what we teach. So the integrative law, it is an international community of lawyers. There is a website, and but it's really when you. I think one of the biggest thing is when people kind of meet each other, they're like, oh, I feel like I found a home.
yeah,
Like for the way I want to show up in the law, because before it was just like you're kind of like, oh, it's like, are we all doing that? Like I'm not explaining it in
no,
words.
you are, and that's exactly. I mean, what's coming next, if you will, is a membership community for the Wellness Esquire, so that everyone can. Once you find us,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh wait, there's a zillion people
Yeah.
inside, and law firms
Yeah.
and coaches, and all everything you need to build the career and life that you want. Because it's enough of a hurdle to just recognize you want to do something differently. Then you have to figure out how to do it and who to do it
Figure out how
with.
to do it. And what I found is the people who are doing this work and who have changed so much are so giving of their time, and like it's wanting to help. I mean, the different people have always been like, oh, we'd love to talk to your students. It's just so generous of their time, and just so your listeners who might be interested know the really exciting thing that's happening in this area. So a lot of people have been working on this and working on, my big focus right now has been on law schools and working on bringing, these things to law schools. But Nishat Reuter, who's the general counsel for TED, if you don't know of TED Law, now it's like this initiative that she's done at TED to really help bring training to lawyers and hopefully eventually to law schools. Excuse me, that sort of reflects more of what we're talking about, right? Like, we get trained in law school in one way, that thinking, that great, analytical thinking that we need. But like, then you get into out of law school and it's kind of like, I don't know anything. Like, and I'm like having this whole thing where like, I'm not like, what's going on? I don't trust my judgment. I
Mhm.
don't know how to collaborate with people. I don't know, and now with AI, and I think a lot of my schools are doing a much better job at the ones that I go at getting more experiential classes so that, but I think TED is doing a really great job of bringing like a lot of the different pieces that have been out there that people have been working on for years on trying to bring a more humanistic and holistic way of practicing, right? And they're doing a great, go to the TED Law website, and they're really focused on, yeah, on professional identity and values, on collaboration, on cultural competence, and AI. They're doing amazing stuff and really reflective stuff, right? It's going to assume that you know all the law. Like it's not about the law, and also using like the platform that they use, like
Other
Inspire.
things that make you successful and
Yeah,
however you define success, because it's so much more than just.
exactly. And creativity, like, like students, when you let them be creative, as they create these touchstones, like they don't just write their values down. They like a lot of them get very creative in this whole document that they have. And when you give them permission to bring that creativity, it's amazing. I mean, that helps with problem solving skills.
I
And
love
they have, yeah,
doing that with students because I've talked to law students who are already afraid of losing themselves,
yeah,
which is very upsetting to hear.
yeah,
Not surprising,
yeah,
but upsetting.
yeah. No, I hear it. I hear it a lot from students, and it happened to me, right? We go to law school and we think we want the one thing, um, and then we, even if we have the good mentors, and it's, I think it's integrating, right? And that's the word. It's really integrating these reflective practices into the curriculum so that students have an opportunity to really sort of reflect on the decisions they're making, um, and just bring a more, train the whole person is really like Quinnipiac's motto is train the whole person, because you're dealing with a whole client too, right? It's not just the whole person. Yeah.
Well, and I think just getting across the idea that there's actually no one right way to practice law.
Yeah.
And if you think that, then you're not serving your client well because
Right.
your clients are different. They're different, whether it's an individual or a business. They have
Yeah.
different they have different values, they have different standards, priorities, expectations, all of the things. No one lawyer is going to be the right lawyer for all of the
Yeah.
clients. That's great.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think one of the most freeing things for me that I think has made me a better and better lawyer has been recognizing that I don't want to be the lawyer for everybody. And
Yeah.
what kind of lawyer do I want to be? And how do I continue to build my firm in a way that feels exactly right for me? So that I heard someone say, I wish I remembered who, I loved this, that they focus on attracting the right clients and they focus on building a culture such that the right clients they attract the right clients and they repel the wrong clients.
Yes.
And I love
Great. I
that
love it.
intention of like, yeah, you want to repel the wrong ones.
That's
It's okay
right.
if you're so authentic that some people are just kind of really put off by you.
Yeah, exactly. There's somebody else out there for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? They're like that. No, I love that. And that's a little, to build your firm, to build your business. I think that is also missing in law schools. That the entrepreneurship aspect of it, and we can learn so much from, social enterprise and entrepreneurs, and um but when you're talking about that, that attracting the right clients and stuff, it kind of goes back to those values, right? And I talk about how, like, for a little while, you can live out, with a crooked spine, right? If you think about values and integrity like that, like you can do it. It's just over time, right? Then it starts to really wear on you, right? And you don't want to have to go for that like disc surgery. And so when you're able to your business, build your practice that way, yeah, it just, when you're in alignment, it's just, it serves you and the client better. And that can be, as you said, different for different people because everybody has their different values. I mean, I tell students, like, when I was at the firm, there was a partner who loved SEC work. I mean, loved SEC work, loved it, didn't want to talk about anything else. It lit him up. It fed his soul. and at his table, whatever. But it doesn't mean that that you can find the things, right? And your talents and your skills. But it takes time. If SEC isn't like right away light you up, you might take a little time or a little self-reflection to like think about what that is. And as you say, to have examples, right? Because we're kind of just fed, you do well, you go to the big firm, or you clerk, and understanding that, I absolutely love my law school, and law schools are a business too. So you have to like all take it with a grain of salt, like the messaging. Again, I think law schools are doing a better job. I know, the class that I teach, we talk all about this. It's not, somebody had said, oh, the yoga class. I'm like, yeah, no, we do a lot. I mean, it's great. I think yoga can be part of leadership too, but we do a lot more. It's really about, about actually using tools, thinking about tools for self-leadership and then for leadership of others. And one of my students said, in every law school class, we learn how to interpret the law. But in this class, I learned how to interpret myself, and that was the best gift. And I was like, oh, I'm done.
Good.
Yeah. And I was like, you did that. I mean, I'm literally just a guide. Like if they don't want to show up and do the work, and they all come, sometimes I ask, oh, why'd you take the class? Just because, it's a 1 credit or, fit in your schedule. And that's cool too. And I'm always amazed at how much they put into it. They're eager for it. They're eager to have this, to have basically somebody say like, this is okay to think about these things too, and to share it with each other. So like what you're building in this community of lawyers, and when lawyers want to talk about that in the classroom, when we start each class, I start my yoga classes. I'm on leadership for the Mindfulness and Law Society and the Institute for Wellbeing and Law. And I start all my meetings with like a centering, like we just take a couple inhales and we just sit. It's just to be. And then we go around and we're just check in. And like I usually do, like, what's your internal weather? And I've had students say, like, I've never, like, we don't do that in any class. I don't sometimes know, I never met this person, but now I know, like, that they came in. We had a student one time, he said, my internal weather, he said, like when it's raining out and it's kind of nice, like it's just a little rain and it's summer and it kind of feels fun to be in the rain, and then all of a sudden it starts pouring rain and you're soaked to your underwear and it's not fun anymore. And we're like, oh yeah, oh, dude, we get you. Like we know how you're coming to class, right? We understand what's going on. It takes not that much time. I mean, I have 25 students, but we do it quickly, and it just lets them connect to each other, right? And to see that, like, and it's funny because I have to actually say to them, it's okay to have a sunny day too. Because sometimes they're like, I don't know, I'm kind of sunny today. I'm like, that's good. That's okay too. Like law school can be great too.
Yeah, it's amazing that you do that, and you're giving permission to people to feel whatever it is that they're feeling, and for other people to know that.
Yes.
So many of us, I spent many years this way. I am no longer, just wanting to, put on a show of, everything is okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Everything that's falling apart isn't falling apart. I'm fine.
Right.
And look, there are times when, it's not the right setting, but but a lot of the time it's fine. And we actually can get to the result better if everybody just understands where people are coming from. And if you're a person who needs to be able to just not take over the meeting with your personal life, but just have people know what's going on with you, and you're not in an environment where that's okay, it's okay to recognize you're in the wrong environment and you need to look for somewhere where you can say, here's what's going on. I just needed to let you know, and now we can get on to business.
Yeah.
Those places exist.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it's interesting because, people sometimes I think would be like, oh, why would you do that? Or, like we don't have time, and I always tie these into legal skills as well, right? When you're sitting with the client, you want to make a connection, right? And I think the more the AI takes over things, like these human skills, like, that these are going to really matter. Presence and yeah, and the ability to like really connect with somebody and to see the whole person. And that's not even getting into trauma informed law to like really understand like, what happened to you, the great book by Oprah Winfrey. And
So many of my client calls start with my clients telling me what's going on in their personal lives. And then often, it just comes in, in different parts of our conversation. And often that's how I find out about other pieces that's going on in their business that I do need to know about,
right,
because
right.
they just feel so comfortable telling me everything and not
Yeah.
having such a filter on and being so, professional, quote unquote. And they just feel comfortable saying whatever it is, and then stuff falls out of their mouth and I can say, wait, we actually need to talk about that one, hold on. Back up. And it's because everything's, you know we can talk about anything,
Yeah.
and those are the
Well, you're
clients
making a connection. You're a human
I need.
talking to another human. Obviously, you've got, they're coming to you for advice and things, and I'm sure you'll get that. But to make that connection on, like,
You're a robot.
I mean, when you go to the doctor, right? If you have a doctor that's like, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Versus like, okay, all right, what did you say? It was your shoulder that hurt? It's making that connection. I think that connection can really help. And then there's like little tools that, to teach them to do that.
Yeah.
So I think these are essential skills. I'm not going to say the S word, the soft skills.
Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to share
Oh, goodness.
other than your entire course?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm really, there's a lot of resources I think out there now for people. And um, yeah, the Institute for Wellbeing and Law, I'll do a plug for them. Like that's full of great resources. And yeah, I'm just thrilled. It's just amazing to meet, and I'll just tell people like in a million years, if somebody had said to me, I mean, even 6 years ago, if somebody had said, oh, you'd be going around to all these different conferences and different, bar associations and in front of professors and stuff, and like, popping on your red nose to get people to lighten up, to level up, and doing this, I would have been like, you are insane. I'm never going to do that. Nobody will take me seriously. And it's come to the point where I'm just like, yeah, this was like the natural progression. So I think when you can really open up, right, to just to your authenticity more. And I think having these conversations, because I feel like it's hard sometimes, like the authenticity word, like I wouldn't have, back then. But I think having these conversations is what allows people to be like, oh, there are people out there. Oh, and by the way, I do this so that it's just a little prop to help people to remember to not take themselves too seriously. But also, and I got this from Noreen Brahman from the New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program, who, when I told people I was a laughter lawyer, they're like, you have to meet her. And you put this in your car on your dashboard. And when you get in like the road rage, or we call it, the New Jersey salute, you can pop it on and you just give a wave. And it really it de-escalates you. So I'm all about nervous system regulation. And I've had people laugh when I've done it. I have used it in traffic.
It's hard to see that and not laugh. So you're only, putting good things out in the world if you pop that on.
That's right. That's right. If we were together, I'd be giving you one because I hand them out. No, but I just a huge thank you for the work that you're doing, for bringing this community together. It's such an honor to be here and just blab away. I hope I made some sense.
You made so much sense, and I'm so thrilled that Jen connected us, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful, everyone who chooses to spend their time and their energy with me for the benefit of everybody who listens. 'Cause when we all show up with like this, people feel so much less alone, and
Yeah.
essential. And so thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for hanging out with me and sharing your story and making more people laugh and understand how critical the laughter part is from, you know, the performance side of what we do. It
Yeah.
all comes together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you are a gift. Thank you. This
Thank
podcast is
you.
a gift, and there's so many people doing these amazing gifts. I've
We
been using
gotta
that
go
word a
through.
lot.
We just gotta let everybody know we exist. And there's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love the supporting other people, when, Jen is great with that, like the way that people, really help each other.
we all just want everybody to know about each other.
Yeah,
There's no,
exactly.
we're all doing this together. We're all it's a group of amazing people,
Yeah,
and when we're just getting bigger.
yeah,
So much to come.
yeah. There's an expression in yoga that I love that's, when you find something that makes you feel whole or healed, it's your obligation to share it with the world. And I
That's
feel
how I
like that's what kind of drives it, people. It's just, hey, this is what kind of worked for me. And
Yeah. And I think because so many people, when I started the Wellness Esquire was during COVID, when, networking turned to
yeah,
LinkedIn. And I started to find on LinkedIn, lawyers that were figuring it out in ways that worked for them. And I kept finding that, lawyer after lawyer, those who were feeling more fulfilled and healthy and felt good about what they had going on at the time, first had to go through some sort of lonely shit hitting the fan experience.
yeah,
And I just thought, well, maybe there's a better way. Maybe we don't all have to have a shit hitting the fan experience first and feel like it's just us. What if we help people avoid that to the extent
yeah.
possible and help people know that they're sure, like there's, we all have unique details of our personal stories,
Common theme.
but there's so much commonality of what everyone's experiencing and no one's alone. And I started to, when I would start to bring people together, I would watch people realize, oh my God, it's not just me. I'm not the only one with
Yeah,
a health situation, which was my history, a mental health thing, an emotional thing, a trauma thing, an imposter syndrome thing, a colossal, mistake, like failure, whatever. No one's gone through something so unique that none of us can relate. And as we would realize we're not alone, people would start to show up better and
yeah,
more themselves and with, sparkles in their eyes. And so I think because so many of us who have found a way of working and living that feels good, we've all had to go through it in a way that didn't feel good. So
right.
we just want to say like, hey, I get it, but there's a better way, and let us all help you.
Yeah, yeah. And just modeling, I think, is great too, because then it just shows different choices, right?
Yeah,
That
because
that
there's no
people can,
one way to do it, and just the
that people.
more examples we
Yeah,
have there, the more you can say, "Ooh, I like that piece. I like that
yeah,
piece. I like that piece.
yeah.
Bundle
I
this
like
together, make it work for me."
Yeah, I like to tell students, in house, we were always taught, like, think outside the box, think outside the box. And I love, like, meeting these people, like, they're making their own shapes, like, it's not just thinking outside the box, like, they're law firms. And when students hear, I see it in students, it's like they almost kind of exhale, like, oh, there's all these different ways. They might still, or even just planting seeds. So if down the line, you know, the shit hits the fan, they might be like, oh, there's something, and not have to do like 12 years of me being like, when I finally left my practice, my friends were like, oh my God, finally, you've been saying this for 10 years. But, they'll have ideas of like, what can something else look like?
Absolutely. One of my favorite moments was a couple months ago. I had a call with actually, I think it was a college student thinking about law school, not even law school yet. And, but lots of lawyers in her family. And she, felt like, oh, I know what this looks like. And I turned on the Zoom and I was sitting in a treehouse in the jungle. And she was like, what? How can you be a lawyer
You
sitting,
broke up a little
you
bit.
know? So her response was like, oh my God, it's possible to be a lawyer sitting in a treehouse in the jungle by the beach. Like that is not an approach that I thought was available to someone with
Right.
that kind of expertise and career. And I'm like, well, it
She's
is.
like, and what class do you take to sit in
Right.
the treehouse in the jungle to be a lawyer?
Exactly. And whether that's your path or not, who cares? The point is you don't have to sit in an office
Right.
air conditioned, freezing, wearing clothes that don't feel good and you're just uncomfortable. Like you can if you want to, but if you
Yeah.
don't want to, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So great.
Thank
Thank you so much.
you.
I can't wait to listen to the not mine, but the other podcasts. I've been loving listening to them.
Thank
So
you so much.
so
Well,
great to hear about
I'm
everybody.
having a blast recording them, and I really am. I'm having a blast, and I'm grateful to have you now part of the crew.
Yeah. Oh, this has been so much fun. I love your energy. It's
Right back
great when people have energy that comes through a screen like that. So
at
treat. What a treat.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got a ton of value from this conversation and that you will check out the links in the description to learn more about the guest and the Wellness Esquire. And I hope you take even just 1 minute to do something for yourself today. Maybe right now, drink more water, say no, call a friend, do something that makes you happy, have a 30-second dance party, find something to make you laugh. Also, be sure to subscribe and send the podcast to a colleague. And if we're not yet connected on LinkedIn, please fix that. I'd love to know you. See you next time.